Hey, what's up, psychos? Welcome to another episode of Take Your Pills, a Psychopath, the comedy podcast that exploits mental illness for personal profit. Trademark. I'm your host, John F. O'Donnell, JFOD. Thank you so much for listening. Wow, we have such a great episode this week. Okay, getting into it. Wow, this episode is with the amazing, the one and only, the dear friend, Andrea Allan. Wow, she's a great comedian and podcaster. She is one half of the duo that does the Hot Mess Comedy Hour, and she's great. We've known each other for a long time, and I feel like this time around, I don't need to do any sort of like extended intro. I just want to tell you, and we get into it right off the bat, I have bipolar 1 disorder. She has a very recent, I'm talking within the past couple of weeks, recent diagnosis of bipolar 2 disorder, you guys. And I just want to show you the power of the human spirit of how she is straight up rolling with it is inspirational to me. I think it'll be inspirational to all of you. So we talk about that at length. And then she was acutely around for me. She was part of my rescue squad the other month in November when I was spinning out in New York, which I have talked about in recent previous episodes. So she explains from her perspective what it was like to be there for me. And wow, it is quite the story. It was at times tough for me to listen to, but I'm glad that I did. And I'm glad that we got that. So yeah, it's like, it's a 2-hour episode. It's a great episode. And I'm so appreciative to have gotten to record it. And I'm so thankful to get to share it with all of you. So without without further ado, please enjoy this episode of Take Your Pills, Psychopath with Andrea Allan. Hey, Andrea, how are you?
I'm bipolar. How are you?
Also bipolar.
What?
Wow. A very new recent diagnosis of bipolar 2 disorder, but between bipolar 2 and what?
Cyclothymia, which is the most rock and roll name for a mood disorder I've ever heard. Cyclothymia!
I have cyclothymia because I've been to too many backstage concerts when I've seen Metallica or something,
Yeah.
It sounds very medical. I'm sorry, metal and medical. Like if heavy metal and Big Pharma got together to name something, it would be cyclothymia.
Yeah, it's very, 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 very cool.
But hold on, okay, let's put a pin in that for 1 second because I am so excited to talk to you because I have this bipolar 1 diagnosis. Now you have this recent diagnosis of bipolar 2. So now we're like bipolar bro and sis.
I know,
you
right?
know, which is kind of great. But I feel like we need to back up, give people some context on our friendship, the history of our friendship. We've been friends for so fucking long. I feel like friends come and go, but me and you, it just keeps on going.
It keeps on coming, if you know what I mean. How long have we known each other for?
I love it. The super raunch to like the question. Oh, that is funny. I do forget that you. I don't forget that you're this lovable raunch monster. It's very on brand. Let's see. How long have we known each other? More than 10 years.
That's insane.
No, I'd say at least 10, maybe more.
Wow. I mean, you were in D.C. for a while, so we didn't see each other that often, but we always kept in touch. You would like stay at my place and when you were come back to Brooklyn. So yeah, it's been a long-standing, friendship.
Yeah, and it's cool. I mean, we've had our ups and downs. We've had our our fights and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, because we're both good people, you know, that we've pushed through. And it was like you were saying, you didn't realize it until recently, but there's like kind of a reason you've always been attracted in different capacities to people with bipolar disorder.
Ugh, so humbling to be like, oh yeah. Every time I connect on like a deeper level, like I've had so many bipolar friends. Every time I meet someone and I connect deeply with them, they're like, oh, by the way, I'm bipolar. I'm like, of course you are, because every single one. And I think one of the major things is the like talking, getting like really, really wrapped up in conversation and just going for like hours and hours and hours and kind of like having this intensity. I always sort of felt that when talking to people who are bipolar. So it's not entirely a surprise. Also,
So,
all
yeah.
of my romantic partners are some sort of bipolar. So
Yeah.
it's been there.
Yeah, so it's the sort of thing where there's that real kind of fire in the belly and that intense conversation and stuff like that. You've sort of felt right at home in that
Yeah.
social situation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Every time I make a friend who I'm closely connected to, it's like, oh, we sat and talked until like 3 a.m., you know, in this very, very connected way. You know, well, I certainly have great conversations with people of all states of mind, but that one particularly seems to be like special, or I feel understood in those types of situations.
It's interesting, right? Because it is an illness, but at the same time, there's something really, at times, for lack of a better word, magical about it, or at least there's there's an intensity and a fire and a passion about life that doesn't seem that can be wholly explained by sickness or chronic mental illness.
Yeah. Well, I remember like, so the staying up at night, I don't know if this happens for you. I mean, staying up late, it seems like an across the board, or like irregular sleep patterns seems like an across the board thing, but
That is a challenge.
But the flip side of that is like, so often I'll get these bursts of creativity and it will be late at night. And I remember getting this ever since I was a little girl, you know, just like kind of buzzing along in my own world, and like it was magical. Like it feels euphoric. So it's hard to label that as like an illness, because it's helped me with a lot of ideas. It helps me on stage. Like I have this energy to how I am on stage. People are always like, how do you summon that type of like high energy? I'm like, it's just there all the time. Like it needs to escape. It's not like a put on. It's just in there. So yeah.
Yeah, that fire in the belly is consistently there for me as well. And I will say you are very explosive on stage, to the point where I have a lot of energy on stage, but it's like, oh, we got to follow Andrea. She's really going full psycho style here. And it's very funny, but I'm gonna have to cleanse the palate for my energy for the people, which I'm sure in a lot of other circumstances people feel that way about me.
Sure.
That is actually something I wrote down, was that what I want. Okay, so psychos listening at home, here's what's going on. So you know that I've gotten my diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder about 20 years ago. And I've talked at length in this podcast about how painful that was for me, how it took me many years to be able to say out loud that I have chronic mental illness without crying, how stigmatized things felt, how scared of medication I was, all of that. Cut to Andrea. When did you get your diagnosis?
God, like a few weeks ago, maybe a week or two ago. Yeah.
Okay, a couple of weeks ago, and she is taking it in stride like a champ. I'm very happy for her. Also, a little bit jelly, a little bit jelly of the lack of pain that she is feeling. But I'm very proud of her, and it's a sort of thing because she has talked at length for a long time about what she's been through emotionally, psychologically, all sorts of stuff, has dealt with her shit. So now for her to get this diagnosis is actually more of a relief. Is it fair to say that?
Oh, for sure. Well, I think I think the reason why I remained undiagnosed for so long is because I did get sober when I was like 25. I have been focusing on working out a lot of the issues related to childhood trauma. Like there's two sets of problems here. I'm what they call a dual diagnosis, a DD.
Ooh la la.
I got DDs. But it's like there's addiction and alcoholism, and there's like trauma related things that I've spent a great deal of time working on. And then also in the background, there's been this other thing, but it's hard to like, people are like, how do you feel about this diagnosis or what? And I'm like, I have no other reference point of how it is to be. My mind has always been this way. So for me, this just means more information. Like that's all this means, is like more information and perhaps some relief for the more difficult aspects of this. Like, and also credit to those who have been destigmatizing and been open about their because like to your point, 20 years ago, I think bipolar, it was kind of in the place that maybe schizophrenia is now, in terms of like, oh, you're crazy, you're violent, you're like this degenerate member of society. And there's just enough examples in both in the media and also in my personal life that I'm like, oh, this is not, doesn't make someone worse or bad. It just makes someone like differently minded, I guess, is the way I would say it.
Yeah, and it can be challenging, but it's also manageable, and you can not only survive but thrive, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's amazing perspective to have on it. And do you think that like now, so you have trauma,
Mm-hmm.
alcoholism, and bipolar 2, crushing it.
Yeah, baby.
Would you say that after the fact, it kind of makes sense that you were self-medicating this with alcohol or all these years?
Well, that's actually what my therapist said. So when she started, it was kind of like, I feel like she's always looking at her notepad and like writing stuff down, you know what I mean? And I feel like one thing tipped her, because, and I've worked with this therapist before. I actually started going back to her recently because of just like everything in COVID. Everyone's been falling apart, and I've just been having a really hard time. So eventually I was like, all right, you got it. I was very dissociative and like just in a very bad state of mind. So I was like, I need to take care of myself. And so we kind of went through like my, all of my usual behavior. She's like, how's your OCD, and, how's the hypochondria? How are all your friends?
I didn't even mention those things.
Sure. Yeah. And so
you are take your pill psychopath gold. You are like royalty.
I know, it's exhausting to be honest. Sometimes, but again, I have no frame of reference for for any other way of existing. So it's like, I was like, all right, well, I'm only taking like 2 showers a day. And also a lot of these behaviors I had under control before COVID. COVID just threw everyone into the deep end. All of us were completely, devolving to our worst coping mechanisms. There's so much fear, and anxiety. Like it's, I don't have to tell you, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. And a lot of different coping mechanisms that we have got pulled away from us. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like, yeah. Like a lot of social interaction stuff. A lot
Routines.
For me, for me, it was all sorts of, it was like yoga stuff. It was a lot of performance stuff, stand-up stuff, which I want to hear what you want to say, but then I do want us to talk about stand-up. I want us to just talk about how much we miss fucking stand-up, because I miss it so fucking much. God. But anyway, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, so this doctor knows my family history, and she actually knows a bunch of information about me. And then we were talking about cleaning, because I go on these like fucking, sprints where I won't stop, but it happens in like the middle of the night, and it's from like 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. I'm cleaning and I cannot stop doing it. I have so much energy. I'm so fucking like psyched on it.
Yeah, you've talked to me about these cleaning spurts, these middle of the night cleaning spurts. And I think in my mind, I've always been like, oh yeah, that's kind of weird, but I've never really thought about it. You're intensely cleaning, but the place must already be clean, right?
I mean, not clean to my standards. You know what I mean? And so I also sent emails like when I came out with this diagnosis to those who were the closest to me, who see like the nitty gritty, who get the like the intense emails in the middle of the night or like the emotional outbursts. They were like, yeah, this makes sense. But I read to a lot of people as like a very functioning, like, again, when we were saying like you can thrive, it's like, you know, I keep a clean house. I'm constantly like moving. I'm always engaging in creative projects. You know, I'm like this very intense person. But she was like, tell me more about the cleaning. I'm like, it just feels so good and intense. And like, I can't stop. Like, I will not be able to stop. And also we started talking about the sleep. It's just like, sometimes it's just like racing thoughts. I can't turn it off and I won't be able to sleep. And so she kind of was like, okay. And then she started asking me questions, sort of going down the list of, you know, symptoms and stuff. And it was very humbling to be like, yes, 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 yes. Okay. Yes. Like there's this group therapy that I go to or used to go to, in person, called ACOA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. And I think I've talked maybe a little bit about this in previous shows, but they call it a laundry list for when you go into that program. And it is a similar thing where it's like, you are afraid of authority figures, you confuse pity and love, whatever. Like, and it was a similar experience of like, and here we go again. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, like how many fucking lists can I completely score 100% on?
You're getting A+ all over the place. Dude.
Yes, I mean that's another thing too. Is like I've always done really well in school. I've always been like a person who performs well in most things that I really put a lot of effort into. So that can feel confusing to be like high functioning, quote unquote, because then people are not like, they don't question your behaviors. They don't, you know. Yeah.
Do you think that because you've gotten a diagnosis maybe a little bit later in your life, like, how old are you now?
I'm 32.
Yeah, as of the other day. Yeah. So do you feel like because you got this diagnosis a little bit later in your life, because of the introspective work you've already done, people you know, because of some of these stigma dominoes having dropped, that it was like, so you've been able to roll with this, and I know that we already kind of touched upon this, but I'm very proud of you. And it's incredibly actually heartening. Like I was joking earlier, but it's really, really heartening for me to hear somebody get a diagnosis like this, roll with it, and it makes me feel like, clearly, obviously not just myself, but so many folks who for years have been talking about this and working to destigmatize it, that it's actually had some effect. It makes me actually feel a little bit emotional, to be honest.
It definitely has worked. There's a weird correlation with bipolar people and like intelligence. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, a lot of bipolar people are really smart or creative or like come up with interesting perspectives. So, you know, I like to hold on to that and be like, yeah. And again, through my relationships with so many bipolar people, I'm like, bipolar people fucking rock.
Well, you know, I see it as, yeah, exactly. Which we will get into.
Yeah.
P.S. Here's how on the same page me and Andrea are. For those of you watching video and the new Patreon, you get video, patreon.com/TYPP. Please join. Andrea just drank from her Watermelon Wonder kombucha. I too have a Watermelon Wonder kombucha that I've refilled with water.
Hey,
so that's pretty cool. Also, what people don't know is that my black graphic T-shirt game it's pretty hot. It might be one of the best, but it is top level. But look what I have on right now. This is a new one. This is one that says, can you read what that says, Andrea?
Powered by, disappeared. But does it say lithium?
Yeah, it does. Powered by lithium,
oh my God,
you guys. Yeah. I was just looking for cool T-shirts, and I typed lithium into the search bar, and then I found this. It says powered by lithium. Got a little little pill bottle, and it
Kurt
makes me happy to wear
Cobain,
it.
what's up? What's up?
Most of the stuff was Kurt Cobain related because of the song Lithium. You are right.
Sure. That
but,
song is Kurt Cobain was bipolar too, apparently.
Yes.
I did the whole like
That's
searching for celebrities who are bipolar. What are songs about bipolar?
Yeah, me too. And I definitely tell people Kurt Cobain was bipolar because whether it's true or not, it just sounds really cool.
Fuck yeah,
You know what I mean?
we'll claim him.
We'll totally claim him.
Mm-hmm.
I actually said that in my stand-up special, something about how like we'll totally it's like I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounds cool.
Do you know what's so to bring back to self-medicating with alcohol? It's funny, like so the therapist was like, yes, alcohol is a downer, so it like takes your central nervous system down. That's why so many bipolar people use it to fall asleep or whatever. So she's like, when you take medication, it's like kind of a version of that. I'm like, so you're saying I get to drink again?
That's hilarious.
Shots.
I'm doing it for my illness. I have to do it. It's the rules. Jaeger. I was prescribed Jägermeister by my doctor.
No, I get fucking pill form. I don't get any in the fun stuff, but.
Well, can you explain to people? So interesting. Okay. First of all, because you brought up medication, so you are on lamotrigine, the generic.
Yeah.
I'm also on Lamictal. Lamotrigine is the generic for Lamictal.
Yeah.
And interestingly, people that have bipolar 2 disorder, oftentimes Lamictal can be enough of a maintenance medication that it controls the bipolar depression well enough and balances mood well enough that along with lifestyle changes can have some really good outcomes. For someone like myself with bipolar 1, with classic bipolar,
dude, I'm just the B-side. You're the main
you
album.
Yes, yeah. You're the but B-sides are cool too. B-sides are really cool. They have cool alternative versions of songs. You're like, wow, I didn't know about that B-side, Anyway, for someone like myself, Lamictal is almost like it goes hand in hand with more of a mood stabilizer like Lithium, which can control the manias more. So that's what I'm on. But what I wanted you to explain to people is, so first, real quick, I'll just say this. Bipolar 1 disorder is categorized by having more manic episodes and highs, full-blown manic episodes.
I've seen them.
Yeah, sometimes with psychosis, with psychotic thinking, which I have experienced.
Yeah. So have I.
We're gonna get into that. Andrea was there. Andrea was part of my rescue crew, you guys, for this most recent episode that I talked about in the other episode. We will get to that. But anyway, those manic highs are then followed by depressive lows. They can get really, really dark. And then, you got to claw your way out of it. Bipolar 2 is usually categorized by more of the depressions, then followed by like hypomania, like mania light or something like that, which is kind of what Andrea was describing. Now, Andrea has a diagnosis, and I want her to talk more about it and explain it because I'm not super familiar with this bipolar 3, they actually call it. She's like between bipolar 2 and bipolar 3. And what's that word again?
Cyclothymia. I'll look it up right now. Let's see if I can get it up.
Cyclothymia. So Andrea's, because me and Andrea have talked about this, what you told me is that your diagnosis is like a bipolar 2, between bipolar 2 and cyclothymia, because I don't think sometimes, I know that you've dealt with low-grade depressions, but I'm not sure if you've dealt with extended clinical depressions.
No, I haven't. What's interesting is like my depression it's like explosive. It's hard to explain. It doesn't last for very long, and I think that's why she was like, you're somewhere in the middle, because it's like it comes on and it's almost with the explosiveness of the highs, to be honest. And that's another thing is I've always been labeled amongst family and close friends as very sensitive, deregulated, I guess. Is that dysregulated?
I mean, emotionally, I mean, I would say you're very much emotionally, psychologically, physiologically dysregulated. I'm just kidding.
I mean, but the thing is, I mean, it's like, I just
Sensitive? But what does that
sense.
even mean? Just like that you're paying attention to life?
I think it's a mix of the two. Like, of course, sensitive. Also, sensitive has been used in like as a weapon against me. Like you're sensitive. Like I'm calling out something that's legitimately happening, and then I'm being billed as sensitive because I have this. I am affected very easily. I think I probably cry in some way, shape, or form on like a daily basis, and it's not even like. It's not even like
Oh, buddy.
I know, but that's to me again. I have no frame of reference of any other way. It's not like I'm crying always because I'm upset. I'll like see something beautiful and tear up, or I'll hear a song, or I'll think about. You know what I mean? It's just like everything comes very intensely and quickly for me, and so the depression is a similar way, explosive, intense, and quick, and like I've always been embarrassed by it. Like I don't share it with people. And I think that's another reason why I've always gone under the radar with it is like I'm having these episodes and I'll be like, I don't feel like talking. I'm in a bad mood. Or, like my ex-boyfriend has fielded many calls in the middle of the night where I'm like crying uncontrollably. It's laced with anger too, which is interesting. I think there's also like anger there from other things too. So yeah, it's not like a long lasting, but it's definitely explosive and feels out of control. And I know that it's not rational, quote unquote. But I can't get out of it. Like I just have to sort of like stay the course. And those have been getting worse as I have aged. I think, I think also the sleeping has gotten worse. Here, I will read.
Hold on one second, though. Read that in a second. But what I wanted to ask you about the depression is how often would you say that they happen to you?
Probably a few times a month.
And how long do they last?
Few days.
And yeah, and that's the thing about depression. It is irrational,
Yeah.
but you can't just think your way out of it. You can't just tell yourself it's irrational and then make it go away.
Yes.
And I think, like you were saying, you feel ashamed of them or you don't talk about them very much. I feel like I talk a lot less about the depressions than I do about the manias and stuff like
Yes.
that, because the manias, after some time passes, I can present them in a funny and engaging way,
Sure.
and the stories are intense, and there's a lot going on there, and there's a lot of weirdness and creativity, and
Yeah.
I can use being a comedian to process it. The depressions are just as intense in their own way, and they're just like the banality of depression is so painful.
Well,
And the tricky thing, do you feel like even though your depressions are somewhat short-lived, do you sort of, when you're in them, do you feel like they're just going to last forever?
I've gotten wise enough to know that they're not going to last forever, but they feel hopeless. They also, like when I was younger and drinking, there was a lot of suicidal thought sort of surrounding them. Just felt like a fit almost, and it was like embarrassing to get that out of control. And so I also like was thinking a lot about my relationships, like, sexual, intimate, or otherwise. That part of me I don't show people, like I'm embarrassed by that, so I don't show people that, but that's a very big part of like my ex-boyfriend and maybe my best friend. You've seen a little bit of it, here and there, but it's kind of like, it's like having an injury. When someone has an injury and the muscles around are like stronger to compensate for it. It feels like that. Like I have this embarrassing, dark sort of part, and so I'm funny and fun and whatever as to compensate, because I don't want people to see that other side. I don't want to be difficult to be around. I don't want to be viewed as crazy or irrational. There's also a whole other level to like sadness and women, or emotionalness in women. Like I never want to sort of like give that to people, if you know what I mean. Like women are emotional. I'm like, I am screaming and crying right now, and I will never show you because
Yeah. Yeah.
because
That's yeah. Like, why should someone get to have their bullshit one-dimensional stereotype reinforced at your expense?
yes,
I do think that that's an amazing analogy. The idea of like one muscle being weak and then all of the other parts of the body overcompensating by being stronger or something like that. I've never heard it put like that before.
it also feels
What I
like a
wanted,
secret.
yeah, yeah.
That
Oh no,
only a few
totally.
people are allowed to see until I trust them the most, because I think they're going to leave if they see it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's issues of fear of abandonment and stuff
Yeah.
like that around the depression aspect of things.
Yes, because the manic aspect of it is fun and creative and cool and like very charismatic, very together, this fucking lightning rod. And then there's this other side that is difficult and angry and hopeless, and that's not fun to be around. That's not shiny,
Yeah, for me when I'm in the depressed phase, I don't necessarily feel like I worry about abandonment, but I feel just so pathetic personally.
Yes.
I feel so pathetic and broken, and I feel like my brain is working slower, so I feel like this shell of my former self, and I just feel embarrassed, and I just want to self-isolate like crazy and just avoid the world. And it's just a shitty ass feeling,
Yeah.
But so I think that's why people with all sort of different diagnoses within the bipolar extended dysfunctional family can kind of relate to that. And so can people with unipolar depression too,
Yes. Well, that's an interesting thing that you bring up, unipolar depression, because so it's like I do connect I connect very intensely with people with bipolar, but a lot of the times those relationships will suffer because it's two people of, great intensity. And there will be breaks and problems. The people who have the most long-lasting stable relationships are usually depressives because they like understand that side and they're very non-judgmental. They also remain on one key most of the time. So I'm over here like wah, 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 and they're just like you know what I mean? And so it's like they have an understanding of the things that I have difficulty with, but they're also not fighting the same fight as me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You guys, your guys' dysfunction complements each other.
It
very
does,
well.
for sure. Whenever I meet someone who has like an eating disorder or low-grade depression, I'm like, what's up? We're about to fucking rock out. I'm going to talk a lot. You're going to listen a lot. We're both going to be really dark. I'm going to be like, I want to kill myself. And they're going to be like, welcome to the club.
What did you find looking up cyclothymia?
I know it's how cyclothymia.
Cyclothymia.
Okay, so the symptoms, multiple periods of hypomanic episodes that do not meet the criteria for that doesn't make sense.
What is your understanding of it?
My understanding of it is a often never diagnosed less
version
intense
of bipolar.
Version of bipolar, yeah.
Sometimes they call it bipolar 3.
Yes. Let's see. Let me see here. Cyclothymia, also called cyclothymic disorder, is a rare disorder. Oh, rare. Like a diamond.
So you love that it's rare. You fucking love that it's rare.
Of course, because I have ego. You know what I mean? That's another thing you see all over bipolar diagnosis is like egomaniacal grandioseness. And that's another one that I like hate to admit, but also I'm like, yeah, especially in those hypomanic phases, I feel very, I don't know. It's embarrassing to admit, but I do feel very grandiose.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like to think that I've worked really hard on not having a ridiculous ego, but then I keep thinking I'm the Messiah, which is pretty egomaniacal.
Sure.
You have to feel pretty damn good about yourself to think that that's the case.
Yes.
So what
Here,
do you got?
let me finish. Cyclothymic causes emotional ups and downs, but they're not as extreme as those with bipolar 1 or 2. With cyclothymia, you experience periods where your mood noticeably shifts up and down from your baseline. You may feel on top of the world for a time, followed by a low period between the so it's just saying, like, you also could feel normal. That's another thing, too, is that, like, this seems just like the regular moods of a normal person, but I think the manic highs are higher than perhaps, like, that's why she kind of put me in the middle, because she goes like, I wouldn't strictly say you're cyclothymic, because there's things, also an attraction to, like, risk taking, especially around sex, is a big one. Yeah, so yeah, I'm kind of like I'm like a mix. I'm a mutt.
Yeah. Well, what I think is that does that diagnosis and that explanation, does that it resonates with you? It seems to make sense.
Highly, yes.
So what I think is, and I say this without framing it in a totally glorified way, different mental health issues and mental illness, but I really do, and I have said this before on the podcast, I think that consciousness is constantly evolving while we're on this plane of existence, and I think that evolution is not smooth sailing. I think that it's jagged and raw and upsetting and insane and complicated throughout history in the physical realm. So why should that be any different in the psychological realm? So I think that we're all, not all of us, some of us you can see are just really remaining quite dormant, but a lot of us are going through different shit and are evolving consciously for whatever that means, whether that means more empathy, more compassion, more connectivity of life, different value set, less tribalism, whatever it means, more becoming more humanistic. I don't know. However you want to define it. It's not smooth sailing. So I think what a lot of folks are going through, and if we frame it through that lens, it doesn't just mean like, oh well, I'm just evolving more than you are because I'm mentally ill.
We're the messiahs.
That sounds exactly. We're all the messiahs. Although that being said, I mean, a messiah is just a messenger, someone who like teaches somebody something. So I think collectively, maybe we all are the messiah. We just need to realize that. I don't know, whatever. But what I'm saying is that if we are evolving and evolution is not smooth sailing, that's a better frame to look at things at than just, oh, you're broken, you have chronic mental illness, you are the other that is this piece of shit thing compared to this person who is normal, who doesn't have messed up brain chemistry. Meanwhile, this person who's normal might be a terrible, terrible human being.
Sure.
How is that not a mental illness?
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about it. Also, I miss stand-up comedy so much. It's fucking terrible. I don't know if people realize, you psychos living at home, like a percentage of my existence feels like it's lying dormant.
Yeah.
Like I miss it. And me and Andrew were talking about this on a phone call the other week. So I thought we could just say like there is something. It is one of my first loves. It is. It's something I love the most in the world. Is getting to do stand-up comedy, and having that be taken away just fucking sucks. But doesn't it feel good to like do stand-up comedy?
It's the best. I mean, I think it has a healing aspect to it in terms of, like, we were talking about routine being really important. Like, I was out doing stand-up every night. It also tired me out. Like, I was like traveling around, I was talking, I was like very, very active, engaged mentally. Like, one of my favorite things about comedy beyond the act of stand-up is talking to other comedians. Like, I always can find I'm not always, but a lot of the time can find a very engaging conversation that, maybe shifts my perspective or whatever. It's just like there's a removal of like the social norms, I guess. When you're talking to a comic, you kind of get down to the the nitty gritty very quickly. And it can get quite raw and quite intense. So I feel like there was like I felt understood by other comedians. I felt there's a catharsis in our conversations all the time. I was, able to sort of buzz around New York City until late at night. And by the time I got home, I could sleep. I was like, oh, okay. I have expelled all this energy. I have an inordinate amount of energy, and I could also, especially when I was starting stand up as a younger person, I used to scream a lot more than I do now. I still am screaming, because I had a lot of anger, and my friend David was like, yeah, when I saw you performing, like when you started, I thought you were like a legitimately insane person. And I was like, I was also like working and functioning in society, but I think that it's always been a way for me to release things and discuss things, have perspective on my feelings or the world or what's happening. It's how I process. So along with, my livelihood, it's also how I process the world. And then it's just gone. All my friends are gone. My moving through the world is gone. It sucks. It fucking sucks.
Yeah, it does fucking suck. Because it's just really fucking fun. Like, it feels really good and really special to make a room full of people laugh talking about what you want to talk about. And if it has any sort of cathartic mechanism for the audience, that's such a wonderful, beautiful thing.
Yes.
And it's very cathartic for the performer. And it's like there's this like social compact there where it's like, okay, the comedian's job is to pay attention to all this shit going on in the world or whatever your thing is that you're paying attention to, figure out how to turn that into something funny, present that to people so other people can maybe feel less alone about it, or just find something funny to laugh about to just diffuse some tension in their life, and then what you get back is that laughter, which is that validation, and that's the beautiful social compact. So when that's kind of taken away from the comedian, there still is that hunger and that desire every day, and it's just not being fulfilled. It's like you said, it's important for people with bipolar disorder to have a routine, and performing every night is part of that routine. And I mean, the stand-up act is called your routine.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
Which I think is so interesting to think about it like that, where it is this thing for comedians, especially comedians in New York who can perform multiple times in the same night. Some shows more quality than others, but can still get up and still do that routine and have that routine in their life. Having that pulled away, it really, really fucking sucks. And we try to do these Zoom shows, and it's better than nothing. But for me, that really feels like a methadone clinic situation for a comedian,
Yeah, it's also like you mentioned, like noticing. I mean, all comedians, not just bipolar people, but the skill set is to like notice something. What's the deal? You know what I mean? Like that's a big part of what we do, is like pointing out the ridiculousness or making observations about even the mundane. Like and like back to sort of being a person who is sensitive or stimulated all the time and always taking in my environment and feeling affected by it. It feels like a purge to be able to take all that data and make it useful, especially in a time like COVID where everything's insane, like there is no better time to be talking about the world, but yet we can't. So it's paralyzing.
Yeah, it fucking sucks. Like, I feel so grateful. Like, some months ago, October, I got to do outdoor shows in Denver. Yeah. Well, no, you know what? They had it done really well. It was like the audience
shows were a savior in the summer for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I did outdoor shows in New York. I did those outdoor shows in Denver. One indoor show in Ann Arbor, and it was just fucking glorious to get to release that, and I fucking miss it. And I got a lot to say. And okay, everybody listening at home, it's like stand up is super fun, but I mean, not always. I mean, when you're bombing, it really does suck.
It has its lows. Boy, does it ever.
But it wouldn't be so much fun if there wasn't that aspect to it. If you knew every time how it was going to go when you went out there, you would lose something. That's the thing that is crazy about stand-up.
No matter, huh?
A little bit, yeah. I'll tell you, it does. Like, no matter how many times you've done the jokes and they've gone well, you never know what is going to happen when you get on stage, which is pretty amazing.
Doesn't that like play into like risky behavior? You know, it's also an incredibly risky career as well because there's no certainty to any type of success. You travel a lot. You like bump into every type of personality. Like my therapist was like, it's no accident that this is your career. You know, there's so many comedy attracts a lot of different types of people, but there's mental illness. There's, you know, it's
substance
a whole potpourri.
Abuse for sure. Yeah, it's no, it's totally reckless, ridiculous thing to do with your life.
It's great. And success I'd have it no other way.
Success is challenging, and then there can be success for some amount of time, and then not, and then trying to like rebuild. You know what I mean? He says specifically about himself. You know what I mean? You can be on TV for 5 years. You can be on international, Russian-funded television for half a decade.
To name something.
Yeah, and then find yourself, enjoying the process of building a podcast, and then find yourself about to go on tour, and then a pandemic slamming everything shut. Yeah. Per se.
Yeah, just as an example.
Yeah.
Like for example, you could book an HBO TV series on March 10th, for example. And
unreal. Yeah, that one's got to sting.
Oh boy.
Okay, so I miss stand-up. You miss stand-up. We addressed it. We talked about it. Yeah. Oh, it's so much fun. Isn't it fun?
It's so fucking fun. Even like doing well in the summer shows. At first I was really nervous to go back up on stage because so out of practice, so not sharp. And also like, do I do material about COVID? Do I just do my A shit so I can do well and everyone can have fun? And also like I didn't feel like making COVID jokes. I don't find it funny. I feel like we're still in the shit. So it's like a socially distanced to more like socially dicks. You know what I mean? Like, what am I going to fucking say? You know what I mean? So,
yeah, well, not that.
Sure, of course not that. But like,
no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You have to be very, very clever to have some sort of like assessment of doing that stuff while it's happening in real time,
Yeah.
Can we talk about how you were part of my rescue crew? Guys,
sure.
Andrea really, really helped me, get through this manic episode. Like, she was there. I've talked about it to an extent, but it would be really interesting to hear from your perspective. But first, what I want to ask is, what is it like? Because you've been around me multiple manic episodes around the years, over the years. What is it like? What am I like from your perspective when I'm manic compared to regular old Johnny?
You are much more manipulative. You are very tough. Like you're intense. And you can't really be stopped. You're like, it's like your way or the stubborn, I guess. Intense in like a scary way. Still funny. You still have good zingers.
Tell him what I said to you. So the night before, guys, that was the night before, right? Was that Cobra Club?
I've been on to you for a while though, and I'll go into that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please do. So anyway, the night before, my friends needed to kind of like crash, like get to my house to like try to save me, and then we'll talk about how gnarly that went down, but it broke in the right way, ultimately. But the night before that, I was supposed to meet at Cobra Club for some sort of meeting or something. Andrea showed up. In my mind, I was like, she showed up kind of out of the blue, or it's weird that she's there. And then go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, so I showed up because, to backtrack, your rescue squad is me, Max, and Alessandro. And you had emailed us previously, hey, this is my doctor's contact. If you guys see me being any sort of way that is concerning, like I give you permission to contact her and try to, put me where I need to go in care.
And this was months ago, right? If not This
It
was a
the
while
end
ago.
of 2019, I think, or maybe sorry, within the recent past.
What I'm
And
trying to say is that's it. Like anybody listening at home, if you have a similar situation to me, it's not a bad idea to do something like that. I know for me, it felt a little bit humbling, a little bit embarrassing, but I'm grateful that I did it.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it also gives those who care about you sort of the feeling that they have the authority to do something, because in the past I've always been like, I don't know when I'm not sure, and like, is this my place, or like, you know what I mean? It's like it's a big step, and it's also very difficult to say to someone like, you're insane. You know what I mean? Like, it feels condescending to be like, you're insane and I know better than you and I'm putting you into a blah blah, you know what I mean? But to have the permission from you to be like, I trust your judgment to know when it's time to do something is relieving, because it gives you sort of, and giving me access to the doctor gives me all the tools that I could have, to help you. So I replied to the email thread, obviously without you on it, and was like, hey, I've been like seeing something. It's sort of like we'd had some conversations on the phone where things were getting kind of intense. And I've been like, I don't know. I mean, also COVID is a living nightmare. Like my doctor said, like bipolar people are dysregulated easily, and now the whole
We're
world
falling by the wayside like crazy. Yeah, like I like to think it's yes, you're absolutely right. Like I like to think that it's possible if this shit didn't go down that I would have had enough tools in my bag that I may have not had this episode. I don't know.
Oh,
but
for
anyway,
sure.
go ahead.
I think so.
Maybe.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, that's what I said. So I talked on the phone with your doctor, and she was like, literally every single one of my patients is falling apart. Like, it's so isolating people who are mentally ill is the worst possible, concoction. Like we covered before, like it takes away all of our tools, and so she's just like, I'm scared to pick up the phone because I am worried about like what I'm going to hear next, what's going to happen to my patients. So, but she was lovely enough to, help me along the way. She gave me her cell phone. Like she went like above and beyond, which was really wonderful. But so I noticed that you were skewing a little bit. Again, like I've been in these manic episodes with you before, so the language becomes very grandiose. There's all these books. There's always fucking books. Anytime I see you with a bag of books, I'm like, fuck.
I can be allowed to read books. Like I have books right now.
Yes,
I've been reading.
I know, John. But like when you're talking,
But if I have a bag of books, that's fair.
it's if there's a bag of books and you like don't know where your wallet is and you're talking at like 10,000 miles per hour,
That's fair.
in this very, very like conspiratorial end of the world type sort of that narrative. You also talk about the IRA a lot. You talk about Irish stuff. Irish stuff is a big red flag.
I do. Max, who is also part of the rescue crew, was saying like, John, you're scaring me with this Irish stuff.
Yes.
You know? I don't know why. Oh, I do know why. I think I'm Irish American, right? So Irish Americans have this glorification of Ireland and
Sure.
Irish history. And, you're Irish American. You're Irish Canadian. You know what I mean?
I'm
So
Scottish. Get out of my
Scottish.
nuts. And
Are
Ukrainian.
you Scotch Irish? You're Scotch Irish.
Yes, yeah.
Whatever. So, okay. So anyway, like I'm Irish. My last name's O'Donnell. Apparently the O'Donnells were the last kings and queens to leave Ireland during the flight of the Earls in the year 1092
You're just
or something
waiting
like
for that crown, John. You really are.
It's so fucked up. But anyway, I don't know why. I have this total weird glorification of Ireland. I have a glorification of the IRA, the Irish Republican Army. It's bizarre.
Yes.
And it really does crop up. And it makes me think like, oh, all along I've been some secret agent working for the IRA that's so secret that I didn't even know it was the case.
It's Irish stuff. It's books and rapid talking. It's conspiratorial stuff. Near the very end, some goofy grapes started going up online, and then
because there is this goofy grapes thing that has to do with cryptocurrency, and there is this weird goofy grapes, like there's like the grape emoji and the cherry emoji. That's when things are we're really into
we're in the
insanity
zone.
territory.
You also were donating money large amounts of money to like political groups, which I knew from your past was something that you had done, and posting a lot online. And then Sinead O'Connor is always in the fucking mix.
No, that was just this time around. She has not been in past ones. She really manifested this time around. Don't you think?
Well,
I don't think
maybe.
Sinead O'Connor
I don't know.
was in the
I don't
other
know.
one. But yeah, but basically, I thought, and I've talked about this a little bit, I thought that me and Sinead were working together in some sort of metaphysical capacity in order to take down some of these global techno-fascist entities that are trying to hurt us and trying to usher in their version of reality for all of us, using the pandemic as a pretense to scare the shit out of us in order to do it.
Sure.
Now, that's kind of funny after the fact.
Of course, it's all funny. But so I saw these warning signs. So there are two things that kind of tipped me off. So I ran into a mutual friend who doesn't know you or has never known you in a manic episode and was communicating with you. And I said like, hey, have you noticed something a little intense or off? And then he was like, yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't sure and blah, blah, blah. And so I went, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then another friend of mine said that you had like texted him. I'm a spy. I work for the IRA. And,
the IRA, the Irish Republican Army of knowing who JFOD has been interacting with.
Yes, yeah, I'm a super sleuth. Watch out for me. And then another friend of ours mentioned that you'd asked to smoke weed with him, and that was one of the that's one of your big tells is that you often want to smoke weed when you're having a manic episode. Because I had heard from you, I also heard that you were drinking, but I had heard from you in the past, like if I can't be drinking, I can't be smoking weed. You know what I mean? Like I've heard that from sober, lucid John. So when you start doing those things and then you're kind of like, so I was like, all right, I have all this information. I emailed everyone and everyone was like, okay, what do we do? Blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, Max, another secret agent who was working by my side, was like, I'm meeting with John at a bar tonight. Why don't you come by and we can like assess if this is where it is / if it is, like, where are we in this? How manic is he? Like, what's the level of, emergency? And I come in and of course, yes, you're surprised to see me. I was not invited. So, and I kind of just had to be like, yeah, man, just wanted to say hi. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very weird line to toe because I appear suspicious to you and you're suspicious of everybody and you have your agenda of things that you want to do. Now I'm actively trying to stop you for your own health, but it doesn't seem like that. In your mind, I'm like this fucking narc or this like person who's trying to, lead you into the hands of those who will hurt you. So I have to sort of have this very unassuming, like, hey, I'm just here. What? I just show up places. And then
so you're like, totally. You're like, hey, what's up? It's
a nice bag of books
drinking,
you got there.
I didn't have any books.
You had pamphlets. You had a pamphlet that
I had a pamphlet
that I stole.
You didn't have a pamphlet.
I think actually Max took it. It was some sort of like check out this social bonds pamphlet, and I was just like, yo.
Oh
yeah.
no. Wait. He did take that.
Yes.
It was about social impact investing, and it is about human capital markets.
Sure. So I see the pamphlet,
but he gave it back to me.
Sure. And again, in another time, seeing you reading something like that wouldn't be bizarre. But it was like pamphlet, you were drinking shots of wine, which is hilarious.
That is what everybody else was drinking. That was like the thing they were doing. That wasn't my own. That was like the cool thing happening at Cobra Club.
It is funny though. And I was like, oh, shots of wine. And I was like, hey, John, should you be doing that? And then you came back at me with like, well, some of us don't have the particular gene for alcoholism, some sort of Anthony Jeselnik joke.
No, I said to you something really biting. I was like, well, Andrew, we don't all have the alcoholism gene like you do.
That's rude as
mean.
Fuck. Yes, you're
so
mean.
mean. I'm
you're
sorry.
Mean. It's fine. The thing is, like, and Max made this observation is that like Max and Alessandro don't take your meanness personally. They don't really take anything you do personally when they're dealing with you in that state. But there are chinks in my armor, and you know it. I mean, you push my buttons regularly. So when you're manic and you're mean, you do hurt my feelings, even though I know, like, you know what I mean? I'm like, don't let him get under your skin. But it's hard.
Well, let me say that I'm really sorry. I'm really, 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 truly sorry about that.
That's okay. It's fine. I know that it's not you as I know and love, but I am like, this bitch.
Fair enough. Also, you push my buttons in in our interactions just as much as I push yours, if not fucking more. So.
Well, fuck you.
Maybe it's equal. I don't know.
Well, fuck you, John.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Apology accepted. I'm the best. You're the worst. Okay, so then,
Jesus Christ.
Okay.
All right. So then what happened?
So then I kind of was like, hey, so like, are you smoking weed? Like, again, I'm trying to be this like detective, but also like, hey, I'm just here. What? You know, I just show up at bars and ask you questions about your substance use. Why are you being
smooth
weird?
Operator? Yeah. And then what did I say?
You said, I have an ever evolving relationship with marijuana. And I was like, oh, do you? Okay.
What a bizarre thing to say.
Yeah. You kind of like rolled your eyes back and you were very fluid with the hands. And, you know, you were very like, you wouldn't understand. And I was like, okay.
It's very weird, man. Like my brain just craves these things. Like it just craves booze and weed, and it's just as like putting like fuel on the fire.
Yeah.
And it's also there's a frustration to it. And I know you feel this frustration too. It's like,
well, I have a particular set of genes, so you know what I mean. Like I can't. I've been feeling that frustration for a long time, but yeah,
it is frustrating. Mm-hmm. It's very frustrating, you know.
It's also infantilizing to be like, I can't do the things that other people do, you know, because then I'll lose control, and that sucks.
And it's just crazy. Yeah, you're right. And it's just crazy to me. It's like, I am grateful for it, and it is, and I know it's fine, but it's like, fuck, I need like a rescue team that's in place, and they actually had to like swoop into action because I lose my shit. It sucks, dude. It fucking sucks.
Yeah, but better that than not doing anything. You know what I mean? Like, if that's and I understand that, you know, and I, like I said, you know, my low outbursts are very embarrassing, and I have had people who've had to like talk me down, and that doesn't feel good as an adult. But, you know, I feel like if we have those that understand us around us, it's better to have them be in the loop, you know, even though it feels shitty, you know.
Absolutely.
Limiting.
Okay, so that night happens at Cobra.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure your guys' assessment is, okay, John is spinning out.
You know,
John
it's so funny.
manic.
Yeah, me and Max were like, yes, code level midnight. Your friend Eric Birdstrom, who also happened to be there, was like, he's fine. I'm like, well, you're not. I didn't invite you to this party. You're not a reliable narrator.
Eric is a dear friend, but I'd say both Eric and I, our assessment of each other may not be the most reliable narrators.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Sure. And I adore Eric, but it was so funny. He was like, he just seems, you know, the usual. I'm like, no, this is not the usual. And like
Eric, to his credit, when I was telling him it's okay if I smoke weed, and I was trying to tell him to stop drinking Red Bull because it's poison, you know, he's like, I'll make a deal with you. He's like, I'll stop drinking Red Bull if you'll stop smoking weed.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Such a nice thing for Eric, as addicted to Red Bull as he is, to try to do, you know?
Sure.
But I was like, why would I stop doing something that helps me for you to stop doing something that hurts you? He's like, I don't know if it helps you. You know?
He's, God, being surrounded by you and Eric and Max, actually all of us, the whole group of people is just such a whack pack of energy. You know what I mean? That it's like, how is it contained?
There's a lot of talent there.
One space?
A lot of talent there too. I know.
Yeah. Like it's, and also, oh my God, we'd say something and you'd go, oh my God, not with that attitude. So I'd be like, John, something maybe about masks or like drinking or whatever. And he'd be like, not with that attitude. Then you'd like go back to your books, and I'd be like, fuck.
Well, I will tell you, as normal John, I've gotten a lot of mileage conversationally out of that turn of phrase, not with that attitude. Like that works. It's very funny.
Yeah.
It's very funny to have like a long, like, especially even if you're having like a real actual debate about something with somebody and they say some like long point or whatever, and then you just say, well, not with that attitude.
Yes, it's
it
great.
really is an
It's
awesome
great.
way
It's like
to make them laugh or diffuse tension. So all you psychos listening, just throw not with that attitude at the end of at the end of an argument, and something positive, something will happen.
It's funny, and also it's like, you motherfucker. I want to take care of you right now, and you're fucking throwing not with that attitude at me. And I'm like, it takes a lot of control for me not to get angry with you, because I'm like, let me help you. So another, this is sort of a divergent, but there's another turn of phrase which I've learned that I like a lot. Tim Dillon uses it. He goes, yes or yes. Like, he's like, why don't we do this? Yes or yes. And I feel like it has a similar quality.
That's good. That's
a
good.
Similar, like, bullheadedness to it.
A good Irish one is fair enough.
Sure.
That's very Irish.
Yes.
So instead, if let's say you don't agree with somebody, but you really don't have the energy to explain to them or delve into why you don't agree with their nonsense, you can just say fair enough.
Yeah.
And move on.
I love that. I mean, Tim Dillon is also Irish, so there you go. So the assessment was made by me and Max, and you were being edgy around me. You were not pleased about my presence.
So I thought we were supposed to have a meeting of trying to figure out how to do
also
winterized live from outer space shows at Cobra Club. Like,
I'm
for you
sure.
psychos listening at home, that's where I've had a stand-up show with my friends for 7 years. But go ahead.
Yes. And that's another thing, is that, like, I came in hot with, like, what are you doing, huh? You drinking? What do you fucking do? What's that book, huh? And then I was like, can I talk to you outside for a minute? And you're like, I'm at a business meeting, and you show up just asking to talk. No, I don't want to go outside and talk to you. Like, you were very, very like, this bitch is interrupting my business. Not with that attitude.
Awkward.
Not with that attitude. Not with that attitude. I'm like, oh,
Not with that attitude. Okay, so then what?
So then I email the group. Alessandro was not at Cobra Club, but we had let him know that we were going there to, like, check things out. And I'm like, we need to do something about this. But what's tough about it is, and I had conversations with your doctor, is that, like, I know you're manic. She knows you're manic. She tried to have a phone call with you, or had a phone call with you, but then never received a call back. So, like, we're all very aware that you're not in a good state, but we cannot just commit you because of the laws. So, you're not a quote unquote danger to yourself and others, but there's this fear of, like, because you've been incarcerated before because of this. And I'm like, it's the middle of fucking COVID. I don't want John to get agitated by something and then, or do something because he's manic and believes there's something else going on and then get thrown in jail or whatever. Like, it feels heightened by the pandemic and the urgency feels higher, but we don't have any rights really to get you to a hospital.
Unless I want to go, and in that mental state, I would not want to go. So it gets really tricky.
Not a fucking chance. Not a fucking chance. But, like, we have to do something. So we're like, okay, well, maybe he'll listen to his doctor. Like, basically, we told the doctor, like, us three who are, like, his closest or very close friends, are going to go in there, kind of, like, treat it like a hangout, and then maybe sort of bring up in a non-threatening way, like, you talking to your doctor.
You're talking about at my apartment the next day?
Yes. So we met at the Court Square Diner near the apartment, and we're like, how are we doing this? What are we doing? It's like going into being with you when you're like that is, especially in that space where there's, like, books everywhere and, Celtic flags and,
all my T-shirts were out on top of the TV.
Right. Like, it's like a manic den. So you're going into it and there's this, like, intense is psychic energy the word? I don't know. There's a level.
I believe psycho is the word.
Sure.
Psycho energy.
I don't know, but it feels palpable. It feels palpable, the amount of energy you're exerting, and the place looks insane, bizarre, and it's like it takes a lot to sustain calmness in a completely insane situation.
Fair enough. I remember there was a couple of things. I was doing like weird, like alchemy experiments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where like I had my I had this biography of Woody Guthrie like on the table, and I know that Woody Guthrie also had manic depression, bipolar disorder. So like I had this thing where I was like, I put a bunch of like lithium pills like on the picture of him on the cover, like on his like brain, like on his brain, and then I put like some like a joint like outside of his mouth and like some tobacco. But then I also had it so like if he was like looking down, he could see through this mirror I had, and then at the bottom of that was this like silver dollar of Mark Twain that I had.
Oh, God,
I was doing like
dollar.
weird shit in there. For some reason, number one, and I also remember I kind of like was almost like trying to like barricade myself into place with like a bunch of like information and like and, like books and I had all of these like
it was fucking what's the movie about the genius guy? He writes all over the walls. Beautiful. It was a fucking beautiful mind situation in there where
going on something was
there was
going on.
Information on every surface, and it was just like, oh fuck.
Now, also that particular night, and I feel so bad, and I reached out to her once, but wasn't able to connect, and then I've been avoiding it because I'm so embarrassed. My really good friend Skylar, who is in this human rights graduate program, like she set up this thing where I was supposed to do Zoom comedy for her like human rights graduate group of students or something like that particular night, and it just did not happen. Well, and like when you guys got there, I was trying to like set it up or something like that, and it was just all in all it was a total fucking disaster. Well, it's like, so fucking shitty.
I mean, it's not your fault. You had the best of intentions, but I saw you like trying to do a podcast, and I was just like, no, this is not like me. And actually, Max Bruno has this like resting, mothering, and fathering energy to him that is very helpful because it's like each of us sort of had I was kind of like the director of like what's of the steps that we were going to take. But I can't interface as much with you because I let you get in too much and I get upset. But Max is very like, he was a teacher, so you can see that in the way that he behaves. It's just very like, okay, that's interesting. Why don't we do, you know what I mean? He's, you know, Alessandro's just sitting in the corner quietly, like watching this whole thing go down. Kind of just like helping where he feels needed. So we kind of all had like we had to have a very connected energy as a group of like, we went in there and I was like, okay, this is clearly bad. You know, there's the Irish stuff. There's the shit on the wall, the biographies. Also, you created a shrine for Roseanne Barr.
No, this is what go ahead.
You were like basically being like, this, instead of doing like a writing packet, I like made this shrine and I'm gonna send it to her and she's gonna like understand what I mean by, I don't know. There was like PBR stuff.
There wasn't PBR stuff. It was just red, white, and blue stuff. Like I found this picture, this like movie like pic photo like still from her in the movie She Devil at this thrift shop called Just Things, right? And I put it up on like the bathroom wall. And initially I was gonna make this sort of thing. It was like a shrine to, like a joking sort of shrine to when she told our good friend Ben Kronberg to go fuck himself.
Yes.
And I was going to make some sort of thing with that because then he had people make a meme of it, and I was going to do that. And I thought that would be like a funny artistic thing to do. Then I'm spinning out and getting kind of even crazier, and I'm like, oh, let's do this thing. I just listened to Roseanne on Mike Tyson's podcast, and they both sounded super interesting.
Sure.
So I'm going to make this thing where like Roseanne should run for president for 2024 and I'll be her campaign manager. So I'm just going to make this funny, weird thing and send it to her. super weird, super manic, bizarro thinking.
Well, yes.
But
Here's
that
the
was on the
thing.
wall. Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's like everything kind of has a point to it, like a strain. Like some logic.
String.
String. Thank you. A string of logic to a point, and then it's completely batshit. Like, yeah, exactly. And so it's like you start to, and you're like, okay, and here we go, and okay, you know. And so the conversations with you also are speaking very quickly, and you're very agitated, and your face also contorts a lot, which was
My face contorts.
your face contorts. Yeah, that's the most frightening, and is the most frightening because it looks like you're in pain. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like seeing your friend sick. You know what I mean? Your face contorts, so you scream. There was a lot of like, I'm not sick, like a lot of screaming and fighting us, crying, and it's like, it's not, the whole thing is like, I'm not upset with you. I'm upset at how in much pain or in, how much this is like taking over you and your life,
You're upset at the situation because it's heavy. Yeah, it's got to
Yeah.
be emotionally heavy,
Yeah.
and it affects different people differently, and it's got to be a lot. Like, for example, like, Mia and Eric are very close, but he even said, because he was around me acutely during one of these episodes and he was there for me, and he said, though, he's like, look, he's like, in the future, he goes, because of my own shit that I'm going through, he's like, I don't know if I'm the best candidate to be around during
Yeah.
that, you know what I mean, at least acutely. And that's just, it's okay. It doesn't mean that he cares about me less or anything like that. And I'm sorry that it's trying on you. It's a fucked up thing. It's a fucked up mentality to be in, and there's that lack of self-awareness when I'm in it is like, it's super super troubling. But all right, let's forge forward. So then
The frustration is also like, I know sober, lucid John, who is my lovely friend who works so hard to stay healthy, and I feel this like frustration for you, that like this is not you, but I know I know that like I know I can't trust you during this time to make decisions that are good for you. So it's a difficult line to toe, and I also think it's like, oh, I'm also bipolar too, so I think I understand, like, because of where I sit, I think that like I understand you on a deep level, but I also understand, like, sometimes I have fun with you when you're this manic too, because I'm like kind of like, ha, oh yeah, let's go. But I can't let it fully. I think that might be part of it. Is I also I'm a deeply, despite being a total cunt, I am a deeply empathetic person, and so seeing other people, like, I have this, like I said, I have these chinks in my armor that I get. It's like Max had to kind of move me sometimes or get me away from you, because I'm trying to take care of you in other certain ways, and it's like, no, we need to be stern and not emotional, and I have trouble doing that. Again, sensitive person. So then,
well, look, thank you for being there, honestly, and I'm so grateful for my friends and appreciative. Like, thank you for putting yourself outside of your comfort zone for me like that.
not with that attitude.
Oh, fair enough.
You're welcome.
You.
We had to. What are we gonna do? Let you die in prison? Come on, from COVID that you think isn't real.
No, I think it's real. I just don't think we should let it have a small business genocide.
Yes, I know.
You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying. No, I mean, I also know that when you sent that email, I could have opted out, but I believe that you should do what you say, and your
yeah,
friends,
you opted into the worst newsletter ever.
yeah, I think like that's what friends are for, and you've also helped me a great deal in my life, so it's not, I don't view it as a burden. It's just norm, within normal life, a lot of people don't interact with something of this level. I also have had experiences with you before. And again, in comedy, you have experiences with like a myriad of mental illnesses. So I think like it is a bit different for people like me or Max or Alessandra who understand it and are not afraid of it. Like I wasn't afraid of you at any point. I didn't, even when we were fighting, we'll get to that. I wasn't ever like, John's going to hurt me. John's a dangerous person. I just was like, John's sick and we need to get him help. So we come into this fucking...
Yeah, and all of this incentivizes me even further to do everything that I can to stay well, so I don't have to put my friends in that situation, you know? But go ahead.
Sure. Well, I mean, and also, again, to go back to what your doctor said, is that just like everyone, you know what I mean? It's like this is an extraordinary situation where, you know, everyone is faltering. John Mulaney's back in rehab. Like, we are out here fucking freaking out with just cause.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be so hard on yourself about it. But so anyways, so we go into this fucking Sinead O'Connor, Rosie O'Donnell, very feminist of you, actually. You know, we kind of just like, the thing is we can't hit you with the doctor shit right away. First, we have to be like, we're here to hang out. You had guacamole out, by the way, that was like kind of gone bad. And you were like,
no, that was new guacamole, and that was for you guys. That was for you.
Sure.
Did I know you guys were coming over, or do you just randomly buzz?
So Max had said, I'm going to come over with my girlfriend. But secretly, the squad was deploying. And again, it's like, I wonder what you think about me I obviously know you can't access this frame of reference, but it's like, why is Andrea just everywhere now? You know what I mean? Like, Andrea shows up at Cobra Club. Andrea's in my apartment.
Who knows what I was thinking was going on?
So we kind of just go like, oh, you're like, I'm recording a podcast. And I'm like, no, you're not. And then...
No, I said I was doing a live Zoom stand-up show.
And I was like, no, you're not. And then Max kind of like picks up your computer. You know, there's kind of just this like slow burn of like talking to you and hanging out for a bit and trying to like keep you calm and like trusting of us. And then, you know, for a while you were jumping up and down off the bathtub. And smoking cigarettes in the bathroom.
I think I was scared. I think I was legitimately... Was that when I was legitimately scared that, like, these people were trying to hurt me? Yeah, like,
I was
scared
like... the whole time.
What?
I think you were scared the whole time.
I was. Okay, so by the time you guys got there, I was in, like, I remember I was in a paranoid state of mind where I really thought some of these big global entities had some sort of ability that they were going to be able to remotely snuff me out or something like that. And I was really like annoyed by it, and I was kind of scared.
Yeah, sure. And I could sense that in you. That's why we're like, let's take it slow, because I know what you've thought in past. I know how you work in these things. So I'm like, I don't want to appear as a threat in any way and also you're much more agitated than usual. So it's like, I don't want to in any way seem like I'm convincing you to go somewhere you don't want to go. You're also, again, incredibly manipulative. So, you know, I mean, you think you're manipulating us, and I'm like, motherfucker, I'm manipulating you.
What do you mean?
You just like you're again. We'll come to this, but you tried to escape at one point. You kind of you have this like, you'll go into like a semi-lucid seeming state. And I don't even know if it is lucid. It feels lucid when you're kind of like, you acknowledge, like there are time periods where you acknowledged how crazy the place looked, or kind of like when we were talking to the doctor, you were like, okay, I'll go get my like blood taken to check my level. Like you kind of like seem like you're, for lack of a better word, playing the game with us to placate us. But I know it seems like ultimately you're trying to placate us enough to get us to like go away, or, you know, not try to push you towards anything. Like there's this fine balance, because you don't want to be told what to do, as of like suggesting things, and then kind of like, you know, for a while it was like, all right, you want to smoke cigarettes and do a bridge in the bathtub, we'll do that. I'll play music. I tried to play music to like calm you down. And like, you know, and then eventually we were like, let's talk to your doctor. And you weren't adverse to that. I mean, I think I don't know. I can't speak to your state of mind, but I think you kind of were like, all right, well, I'll talk to the doctor, like get them off my back. It seems to be the idea.
I'm not sure if it was get them off my back, but I just didn't feel like that was like, for whatever reason, I didn't feel like that was a threatening thing. Like I figured I could talk to my doctor and sort of like just be like, yeah, I'm fine. You know, I don't need to be hospitalized. Yeah. Like I think it was as long as there was the option on the table to avoid hospitalization, which is what she was trying to do. Then I think that I was like, okay, that's fine. So there was the idea of, there were two things going on with me, wanting to avoid hospitalization and also being really paranoid that I was somehow remotely going to be murdered.
Yes.
In some sort of metaphysical capacity.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So that was, I think, the opposing
attitude.
forces. Well, with that attitude. But, you know what I mean? So I think the thing that I did that I remember when... Can you describe what it was like to have the doctor be on one cell phone and then my sister down in Florida, who really did not know the specifics of what was going on the other?
Your
and
sister
then,
was
like,
fucking it up, and all the
because she didn't know.
Sister,
she didn't know.
I know. There were several moments throughout this episode where it was like, I'm gonna take a snapshot of this because this is batshit. You know what I mean? Like when you were jumping off the tub and I was holding you up and you were smoking a cigarette, I was like, that's batshit. You showing me the Roseanne thing, I'm like, that's batshit. This was another. No offense. The batshitest of batshit was.
Well, what about when those two potatoes were in like the corner in that bowl? There were like two potatoes in the corner in the bowl behind the TV that somehow had something to do with Sinead O'Onnor in Ireland or something like that.
Everything's symbolism, and you also kept nagging us for like not being well read enough. It's like, you fucking dick. So
but the batshittiest thing was
this was not the batshittiest
dueling
thing,
cell phones.
This was it was in the Hall of Fame for the night for sure. So we got you to talk to your doctor, and you were kind of starting to like again like she's a wonderful woman, and she knows where you're at, so she's being very like matter of fact and calm with you. And basically is trying to, again, we wanted to get you hospitalized. That's what she also wanted. But she knows that you're not going to go willingly. So, like, there has to be some sort of, she's trying to make a deal with you, basically. And so the idea is that, like, so she's like, I need to see your levels. Can you basically, like, give blood and I'll look at your levels? And are you open to the idea of taking, like, I guess an antipsychotic, something to, like, take you down a notch from where you were, and Klonopin to calm you down. So you were kind of about that a little bit, but then you were like, I'm going to visit my sister in Florida. And we were all like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Not with that attitude.
Stop it.
I can't stop.
It's good, right? But you're using it wrong.
I know. I just like throw it at the end of every...
It's a good one, but you can't overuse it like that. But so the medication she was going to put me on is something called Respiridol, which is can be a sedating medication for sure that I knew I didn't want to be on, but I was like, oh yeah, that'll be fine. And then because she was worried because I was drinking, and sometimes there can be anxiety associated with then not drinking after having been drinking on lithium, that she prescribed some generic of Klonopin, which is an anti-anxiety, which we will then get to how that plays into things. But but that's what's kind of really sucks is that if I was like my regular self watching how manic I was that night, I would have been like, yeah, get me to the fucking hospital. Let me spend a week in the fucking hospital. Like, you know what I mean?
That's what's frustrating for us, because I know lucid you would be like, you're doing the right thing. Like, get me to a hospital. And I know that that's what you had asked us to do, but we're not dealing with lucid you. So it's like we're dealing with this demon.
Because in that mindset, I'd be like, there's no way. You know what I mean? There's no way that I want to go to... to these, I would want to go to NYU Langone Hospital or Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
There's some good hospitals in New York. you know, and obviously it's not ideal, and it's not like the places are fucking awesome. They're fucking psych wards, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's not a fucking party you know, it's not a
Mm-hmm.
fucking party van. But that was not
It's
happening.
not a party van. You're saying the psych ward is not a party van.
For the record, I'm going on the record saying that the psych ward is not like a party van.
Well, that's
But
good to know because I was always wondering.
yes. But you know, you're just between bipolar 2 and
Sure.
bipolar 3, so you're probably never gonna know.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't get to go on your party van. I'm too stable.
Yeah, like
for
I
your
said that
party
as like a
van.
diss.
I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
right?
I said that
How
as like
dare
a diss.
you.
You don't get to go to a psych ward. Yeah, burn. I gotcha. Okay. So anyway, I call my sister. Go
Yes,
ahead.
so you call your sister because you're going to Florida, and we're all like, okay, John, sure. And I'm going to Iraq if we're all going to say things that aren't going to happen. But basically, you.
I was actually planning a trip to Florida. But
I
go
know
ahead.
you were. I know you were, but we
ahead.
knew you're not going to
Yeah.
Florida. I also know in past. So again, your sister, lovely woman, she gets.
You need to understand, she had no frame of reference.
Of course,
for what was
no, and
going
I
on.
did know that, and I was like, "Oh God, this is a nightmare." So basically, you're explaining to the doctor you want to visit your sister in Florida, and the doctor is being like, "John, if you get on a plane in this state, you're not going to be able like." You know, she kind of was doing the dueling, like, because you were like, I don't want to wear a mask. And she's like, well, everyone has to wear, you know what I mean? And then also she was kind of tiptoeing around the fact, like, in your current state, you're not going to, like, and we were also making references to times that you had tried to get on planes before when you were manic. Like, there's this whole traveling while manic thing that you love to do. You know.
It's disastrous.
Yes. So we are all like, you probably can't pull that off, and you're like, and so you were like, let me call my sister and you can tell her that I can't do it because I feel bad or whatever, or like you were kind of, I don't know what the intention was with the
What?
sister, but so then the sister, so now the doctor's on speakerphone and now your sister is on other speakerphone. So basically your sister is like receives this call with you sounding concerning, and then another voice in the room, but it's via a speakerphone. And then it's all of us. And it's this fine line because it's like, I want to communicate to your sister that you're manic, but I can't say. That's another thing the doctor said to me, like, don't say bipolar. It's going to say, don't like say anything that's like labeling the state that he's in because he's very agitated and you don't want to make him more agitated. So it's kind of this like dance where it's like, John is in a mood, if you know what I mean. But your sister is like bamboozled with this phone call and then this doctor's voice and whatever. And you, in your manipulative and very super sleuth way, are like, I'm fine. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to convince her that you're fine. Like, you're saying, like, doctor's not right, or we're not right, or he's fine. And so she's like half kind of believing you, but also kind of hearing the voices in the room and being like, who's that? What's this? And I think she quickly caught wise to sort of like what was happening. And then was like, John, do you remember what happened in Dublin, in Ireland? And like was kind of like talking about these situations when you've been manic before. And she was like, there's decisions that you made that like led to the, you know, I believe that I don't know exactly. It was kind of a blur, but she was basically saying like that she's had other family members that have dealt with, like, she knows the way to talk and act in one of these situations, and very like, oh, it's so great, John, that you have your friends here that are so loving, like trying to frame it, which is what's happening, but also trying to like focus on the positive and trying to convince you in her way to like maybe seek help without saying it directly. So
Yeah, it was just a weird situation because she's my stepsister, but I just call her my sister. But we haven't seen each other in a long time, but we've like reconnected. We reconnected before I was manic and have since reconnected. You know what I mean? And so it's a sort of thing where she has frame of reference for stuff, but not completely. Like, she knows about it, but hasn't really been around me very much for a long time, or when I've been like that. You know what I mean? And for just a little bit of a happy ending to that little chapter, because she's married and has two kids who are my nephews, who I've only met one of them briefly when they were a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am gonna go visit them and see them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm excited about, to reconnect with her, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was just, to me, I even remember how bizarre it was that I was holding a phone on speakerphone of my sister talking to my psychiatrist, who is a great psychiatrist, by the way, like on speakerphone as well. And I just thought that was just like trying to convince her that I was normal.
And at one point, you did scream during this call, like, I'm not sick. I'm not sick. And it was just like, okay.
I'm going to say that's a telltale sign. I am sick. I am sick.
Sure, exactly. I'm like, oh, okay, buddy.
So then, okay, so here we go. So Andrea, then it gets decided by the doctor that, okay, we're going to try to avoid a hospitalization. Well, because you probably couldn't get me to the hospital.
Yeah, I knew we weren't going to. I knew it.
So it was like, all right, now we're going to try this other thing where we get medication into John, this Risperdal, which can be this very strong antipsychotic. That's something that I knew that I did not want to be on, because years ago I was on it for a brief period of time and I was like, this makes me feel like shit. But personally, if it helps other people, I think that I deeply think that is a good thing, but it doesn't. For me, I did not enjoy it. But so it was, the idea was like, okay, Andrea, the angel that she is, you find a 24-hour pharmacy in Queens, different part of Queens from where I am, and then go ahead. So then what do? You bike out there?
Yeah, there was a period of calmness after like the decision that you would take meds, which me and Max have spoken about it. Like, we were both like, he's not going to take, you know what I mean? Like, we were like floating in this kind of like potential for it to work out. But also the idea was like the next day you had to go give blood. And so that's why I was like, okay, I'll stay over and try to like force him to do that the next day. But in my mind, I'm like, this is a fine plan, I guess. But I really actually don't think, like, I don't know that he's going to take these meds. I don't know that he's going to give blood. I don't know anything, but we're just going to try, because that's our best course of action. So I jump on my city bike. I bike over to the CVS on Ditmars. Shout out to the CVS on Ditmars.
Astoria.
Favorite. So then I'm biking back, and I just have a bad, also when you're in these manic states, it's unpredictable. So we don't know what you're going to do. And I'm like, I just have a bad feeling about like, this turn of events. And when I left, everyone was like cleaning, and you kind of had this like, again, like seemingly lucid moment where like, I don't know how it got to this and whatever. And then we had a moment where I'm like, I'm going to go get those meds. Like, you need to trust me. And I'm like, do you trust me? Like, I'm trying to relate to you and be like, hey, it's me, your friend, who's like always been your friend. So, and you were like, I do trust you. So it's like, okay, maybe if we approach it from that angle, like, So.
I remember that moment of you saying, do you trust me? And I remember being like, yes. And really, really believing that and feeling that. I do remember that.
Sure. And I was like, because I know that you do trust me, but then I also know that you might think that like there's other forces beyond me that are working not to my knowledge, So, but I was trying to appeal to like our relationship. I think that's something that I've learned through dealing with you, is that like being like pointing out the things that are crazy seeming or bad or whatever is not the approach. The approach is like, I'm your friend and I've always been your friend, and like, here's the evidence throughout the years. So like, why would I have bad intentions for you? So I'm biking back. Alessandro fell asleep, which is like, honestly, shout out to him for having he was up super early, and but I'm like, to fall asleep in such a heightened, insane environment is like, I couldn't sleep for hours. But he fell asleep. Max was cleaning, and you were helping him clean, and like there was kind of this sort of like peaceful progress being made when I left. On my way back, I text everyone like, hey, I'm coming back. Yeah, what's the buzzer or something? And then Alessandro responds, where is everybody? And I'm like, what the fuck? Well, I leave for 30 minutes and everyone's like, what? How?
Oh, no.
And then Max texts, John escaped, and I'm chasing him like through some alleys or whatever. And I was just like, oh my God. That's exactly. I'm like, I didn't want to leave because I fucking knew you were going to get out somehow.
Well, the only reason I got out was I was really scared that these fuckers were going to take me out.
And I know you're.
And then bizarrely we leave. wherever I go and wherever corner I turn, I'm in this like backyard of mazes.
Yes.
Of different like
Yes.
random backyards and all of this stuff that I had no idea was there.
You were
and I
under
had,
the
like,
building. Do you know that? You were under the building.
I was under the building.
Yes.
And there's all sorts of like people's backyards and all sorts of windy turns
God.
and alleys and all sorts of shit. And I remember I had like a coffee pot and then I was like hiding underneath somebody's something or other. I don't fucking know.
You had a coffee pot and a tennis racket as your chosen weapons of defense.
Yes, because downstairs in the basement, some people have like a whole bunch of stuff in the hallway because I guess they're the only apartment on that floor. So I grabbed a tennis racket and I grabbed a pair of their boots.
Oh my God.
A pair of their Timberland boots because I didn't have any shoes on from upstairs, my regular boots.
Okay.
And then I ended up keeping those boots, and I had those boots like through the hospital and everything, got them back, had them in New Jersey. And then when I went back to New York to clean up Pat's place more and to get my stuff out of there, Pat's place is where I was staying, you guys, at the apartment, I very very quietly returned their boots to them.
What do those people think? You know, it's okay. So that's another piece of this.
No
that's
idea.
Fucking hilarious. That's another piece of this puzzle is that Pat, whose place you're staying at, you were like calling him a little bit earlier on, and then I took your phone or something like that. And I just see that Pat keeps calling over and over again. So I eventually pick up the phone and I'm like, hey, this is John's friend, Andrea, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know who he is. I have no idea. But, and he was like, oh, shit. And he was like, I'm John's friend. He's staying at my place. And, like, I'm so worried and blah, blah, blah. Like, is he okay? And then apparently you had texted the last two texts. Like, you texted him a bunch of goofy grapes. And then
A bunch of emojis. Yeah.
Yes, and he responds back, no, Johnny, no. Because I think he's realizing, like, what has happened. And he felt some guilt about, like, letting you stay at his place because he was like, I didn't realize he was in that state. So now I'm, like, giving him a place in New York for him to, like, you know, have the freedom to, like, fully lose his shit, you know? So he was worried about you the whole time. But it's like, I'm trying to keep Pat abreast of the situation, but also at the same time, it's like, I can't keep you, and he's very anxious, which I understand, lovely guy, but it's like, I can't keep you up to date all the time because it's happening like a hurricane, you know? So I
yeah,
felt
you don't have the
bad.
bandwidth to do that. And
Yeah.
I feel bad too because Pat is such a dear friend, and I really wanted to make it work in New York, and I was excited to have like a creative space there. And then when he was going to be back, because he was going to be back and forth from his parents' house, and I was excited about us collaborating on stuff. So I'm so disappointed in myself as how all that turned out. But me and him are totally cool. Everything's good. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been friends with him for like, I don't know, 15, 18 years or something like that. You know,
Yeah,
he's like a brother to me.
He didn't seem like he was just like, oh, I'm so like worried about my friend and like, fuck, I didn't realize this was happening. So
anyway, you okay? So you come back.
So I come back. John's MIA. He's running around tunnels. That's all I have. And like, you had been running.
Max
around.
was tracking me pretty well though.
Okay, Max was again. Shout out to Matt. Jesus Christ, Max is a tall guy. You're smaller than Max, and so he is like hunched over a little bit more, running through these tunnels, like just hearing you like running through, and he knows you have the tennis racket and he knows you have the pot of coffee, and he's like, is John gonna turn a corner and just like fucking whale me with the tennis racket?
Wait a second, these were not like you needed to hunch over alleyways. They were like, I think they were just like, they were weird like side angle, like not even streets, but
okay,
it wasn't like underneath.
Whatever they may be, can you imagine the state of mind of like chasing you around where you had this tennis racket and being like, I don't know how this is gonna end.
And was the coffee hot, or who knows? I hope it was.
Yes, the coffee was hot, and it was like, is John gonna use the hot coffee as a weapon? Like, what is
and the tennis racket,
right?
Oh
like,
God.
So, but he's like,
in my mind, I just thought I had to hide someplace, and I was gonna need the coffee to like sustain myself,
Sure.
and like the tennis racket to defend myself. Or
right,
something.
right. But Max is like, he can't run away. We can't get him out of our grasps. So, you know, and I just fucking knew something was gonna go down when we were all cleaning, and you were like on good behavior. I was like, no, this is not the end of this. This is not. You know, so when I got the text, like, where is everybody? And then Max being like, John's running around with a coffee pot and a tennis racket. And I'm like, yeah, of course. So by the time I get through the door, he had corralled you back out. You also had a piece of wood, and you're like, I got this for you. I was like, okay.
Thank you.
But thank you, John. Thank you for that. And I was like, I'm going to beat you up with this. And you were like, yeah, you're going to punish me. There's also this like sexual undertone.
Really?
Especially always towards me, because we have had a previously sexual relationship. So it's kind of like, you're fucking bad girl. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to murder you, John.
You're like, I am nowhere near into this right now. And no, because I remember when you said that you were going to like stay over with me, when you said that, I was like, okay, in my mind for a second there.
You motherfucker. Well, that's the thing too, is like you are very sexual when you are manic. It's just a, it's a general thing in the past.
That's part of it.
That's part of it. So I know that's what's happening, but I'm also like, oh, this motherfucker's hitting on me right now while I'm trying to get his ass into a hospital, you fucking dick. You said something sexual to me at Cobra Club too, and I just was like, I'm letting that one just wash right over. Another interesting thing, I
said something like your sexuality is like ferocious or
something ridiculous. And I'm like, okay, John. And I also am wearing, this is interesting, Kurt Cobain reference. I have these white sunglasses that have pink lenses, and they're very reminiscent of the ones that Kurt Cobain wore, and you could see them in many photographs. And you kind of were like, Kurt Cobain wore those. And I'm like, yeah. And you were like, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? As if like I should get some sort of like reference that you are making. You know what I mean? Like, isn't it? And I'm like, is it? Like, are you saying I'm Kurt Cobain?
I honestly don't. I don't know. Maybe.
Like Kurt Cobain, who works for the IRA, who also, is a globalist.
Kurt Cobain doesn't work for the IRA. That's crazy.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is like, okay, there's always symbolism to everything, but I'm like, I don't know what you're exactly referring to.
I think it's weird. I think I have this like heightened sense of like psychotic spirituality when I'm manic too, or I think that I'm like interacting with or perceiving or have some kind of like connectivity with like dead famous people and shit like
Our
that.
manic
One of
brothers
which being
and
Kurt
sisters.
Cobain. Yeah, something weird like that, where I feel like I'm like perceiving their cosmic consciousness or
like,
something. I don't fucking know.
With the sunglasses, I'm actually Kurt Cobain trying to talk to you, like whatever. Anyways, so.
No, you can't. No, not that. You can't make me crazier than I am. That's bullshit.
How dare you? All right, so not with that attitude. So.
Not with that attitude. Go ahead. So.
Okay. So
holy shit.
So you escape. You have the wood. You think I'm gonna dominate you or something. I'm exhausted too. I'm getting exhausted at this point too, and I'm so like, I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna wake up in the morning tomorrow and I'm gonna try to get John to get his blood taken. Like, what is that? That's never, you know what I mean? But I'm just trying to like, all right, well, let's just take things step by step. Interesting. Your doctor also said to me that we had to hold on to the Klonopin. Like, she didn't want you to have all the Klonopin to yourself, which will come into play later.
How'd that work out?
I know, God. So we get you back to the place, and I'm like, John, you have to take your meds. You're kind of dilly-dallying and avoiding it. And I think you were like, can I read the label or something? Like, can I see this? And just out of like exhaustion and whatever, I was just like, yeah, sure. In my mind, you were going to read the bottle and like make up some bullshit like you were allergic or whatever. And I'm like, all right, let's just let him do whatever fucking trick he thinks he's going to do. I'm going to shove those meds down his throat, whatever it takes. Right. And Max is in the kitchen cleaning. Alessandro is sleeping. I don't know, taking a nap. And you just so quickly opened the Klonopin and just took the entire bottle. And like, it was so, I thought maybe you threw it on, it was so shocking. I thought you like threw it on the floor maybe, or were like hiding it. Like, I didn't clock immediately that you had taken it, because it was like 25 to 50. Like, there was a lot. It was a whole bottle. So then you were like, I'm neuroatypical, I can take it. And I'm like, fuck no, neuroatypical, my ass. So then we're like, holy shit, John just took an entire bottle of pills.
Okay, couple things. Yeah, that was objectively super fucked up. What I want to say is, I think Alessandro's calmness comes from how many times he's been around me from these
Sure,
episodes,
sure.
but
Yeah.
whatever. But what I want to say is, like, okay, so yes, it was dangerous, but it wasn't like a full thing of pills. They were not the. I thought they were the smallest size of Clonopin, but they were not. They were the second to smallest, and so they were in there. So they're like those little pills that only fill like a kind of like the bottom of a whole pill bottle. But for me to just scarf an entire whatever, what is it? Who knows what is it? A week supply, 2 week supply? Who knows?
That
A
was a
month
lot.
supply?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it was dangerous. I really, I the mentality really somehow was, oh wow, this is what I need to do to get these techno-fascist entities off my back to not kill me. That was really the mentality.
Well, yeah.
Isn't
Of
that
course,
weird?
Also, again, this is not rational you. So rational you would never do that in front. Like, you know what I mean? It's traumatic and risky and not a great. But we're not operating with that person. So we're like, all right, that's what he chose to do. I mean, honestly, kind of did as a favor in a sense.
Well, that's the craziest part is that so because of that, like if I didn't do that, you guys would not have been able to call the EMTs. They
Yes.
would not have then been able to get me to the hospital where then could like a regular hospital where I could wait for a bed to open up, a psychiatric bed, and for me to get into a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
If I didn't do that, who knows what would have happened?
Yes.
That's what's so crazy.
Yeah.
But like, it's just such a crazy thing where, unfortunately, and somebody recently called me because she's worried about her friend who is dealing with what seems like an extended manic episode. And I did not have any definitive answers of like A to B to C playbook of how to get someone to a hospital. And it sucks because you want people to have rights. You want people to have human rights when it comes to some level of
It can't be used
neurodiversity
in a
and stuff
bad
like that.
way against you too. Like that's a very slippery slope to be like you can just commit anyone.
Exactly. That's what it's so hard,
But yes, I mean that's also frustrating for us because we're like, where does this end? You know what I mean? Like when can we get you into treatment? How can we do that? Like again, there is no answer. We kind of walked into your apartment being like, all right, let's see what happens.
Which sucks. So what ended up happening, psychos, was I downed those Klonopins. In my mind, it was not a dangerous thing to do, which is insane. In my mind, it was get the globalists off my back. Which, by the way, I've come out the other end of it now and can make comedy about these fuckers in like a zen way because I feel like I had this weird emotional, psychological, spiritual reckoning with all of it. But that's a whole other point. But then after I did that, then explain what I tried to do in my escape.
Okay, well, so Max called the EMTs very quickly, and they happened to be nearby, thank God. But so first I grabbed you, and I was shoving my fingers down your throat, trying to get you to throw up. And I was kind of like wrestling you to the bathroom and trying to get you to throw up. And you were kind of complying with me, not fully. There was like an acknowledgement that you had taken all these pills, and it was very like Max was very like, we're calling the EMTs, and I'm like, yep, and I'm like, John, we're making you throw. Like it's very because it's such an emergency, in our mind, it's a ticking clock until you start metabolizing these meds. I don't know if it would have killed you. I don't think so, but like I'm not taking the chance, Now there's this like huge amount of adrenaline and huge amount of like danger and urgency of everything that happens. And also I feel so guilty because number one, your psychologist, was like, don't allow him access to these pills. And then I foolishly gave them to you, and like, you know, I'm like, oh, I killed John. John's gonna die, and it's my fault. You know,
Oh, buddy, I'm so sorry.
it's
This
okay.
is fucking nuts.
It was definitely not my favorite moment, but
Do you see that Psycho's Manic episodes are not just fun and games,
no,
y'all?
it's not all Sinead O'Connor and Rosie O'Donnell. So I'm
Roseanne Barr. Why do you keep saying?
oh,
because my
sorry.
last name is
Roseanne
O'Donnell.
Barr. Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
so I'm shoving my fingers down your throat. It's not really doing anything, and then you try to escape. You're trying to get out of the apartment again.
I remember I got back to where Pat's room was. I remember being in between like the bedroom and the
Yes.
living room, and
Mhm.
like I'm trying to squirrel my way out, and Alessandra, who does jujitsu like 3-4 times a week, is like keeping me in check on one end. You're keeping me in check on the other. And he's like, dude, he's like, what do you do? He's like, what are you doing? He's like, I do this for fun. Relax.
Yeah, I know.
Like, there
I
was
know.
no
He had
way
you, and he had
I
a
was going to escape.
chokehold. Yeah, and you were trying to bite him to get out of the chokehold, and he was.
I think
like,
at one point I did the bite thing. He's like, no biting, no
yes.
biting.
Yes. And I was just, yeah, we were brawling. Like, we were like hitting walls and stuff. Squirrel is the perfect word because you're smaller than me. So you find like a little hole and you try
Burrow
to
through.
thrust your energy. Also,
Yes.
you have so much fucking energy when you're this manic. You have like this weird strength to you. You're very hard to hold down. You would also grab like the inside of door frames and like launch yourself using that. I was like
It's so fucking
I was like
insane.
slamming you down. Like I was using my
Yeah.
entire body weight to slam you to the ground.
Yeah,
I
it was
think I
fucked
also
up.
was pissed.
You should be. You should be fucking pissed.
But like,
you know?
I think I was just there was so much adrenaline, so much energy, and I run angry, and I was just like, all right, this is gonna give me an excuse to fucking nail you. But also at the same time, I'm like, I can't let you leave this, because if you leave, then you might potentially run away. Now you're running around with all these drugs in your system. Who knows what's gonna happen? You know what I mean? I'm like, it's not an option. He is not an option to let him out of this apartment. So
Yeah. I remember after the fact, I said to Alessandra, I was like, maybe because right after I took him, like we got into that wrestling match and my heart rate got up so much that helped the pills like not like overtake me. He's like, I don't think that's how that works.
no,
dude.
I don't think that's science. I think you take a bottle of
think that's
pills. You take a
science.
bottle of pills.
So the next thing I remember, and I don't remember a ton of stuff, I remember the EMTs showing up, and I remember me being somehow, because you never know when I'm going to just be chill. Like,
Yeah,
I
you
remember
were
being pretty
compliant
chill with them.
You were compliant with them,
And
but I
compliant
kept
with
being
them.
like, don't trust him. I kept being like, don't trust him. Because again, like, and every step of the way, it's like, we need everyone to know that you're bipolar and you're having a manic episode. You're also very smart and manipulative, and you're going to be able to maybe appear lucid for a while and be like, I'm fine or whatever. The thing is, again, you took the pills. So that was kind of off the table. Like, they're not going to be like, oh, well, you seem fine, sir. Have a good day. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to happen. But I'm just like, don't trust him. You know, he needs to go to a psych ward. Here's his doctor. You know, there's a lot of like us communicating with the EMTs and then you being walked out.
Did they give me something right away when they got there, like some version of Narcan or something?
So I don't know. And this is what was really scary about it, was because you were being let out by them, and I was then like trying to close up the place or whatever, like get all of our shit, or, you know, because I'm like, we're not coming back here. So I didn't see them putting you into the ambulance, but they were standing outside for a while, and I completely had like dissociated at this point. By the time we were outside, I was completely fucking on another planet. And I was kind of like wandering around, you know. I called your doctor to like let her know what was happening. I called Pat, you know, whose apartment it was, and to say what's happening, you know. But I didn't like, either the EMTs didn't tell me, or I wasn't there for that portion of it, being like, oh, he has like a version of Narcan or something like that, that like he's not in physical danger anymore of like overdosing or whatever. So in my world, there's 2 ambulances and they're not moving, so they're not like taking you anywhere. So I'm like, is he dead? Like, are you giving him anything? Like, what is fucking happening right now? I told the doctors where you wanted to, or the EMT workers where you wanted to go, And they were like, well, we can't take him there, but we'll take him here. And because I knew one in Long Island City that like your doctor said also was okay. So there was like that negotiation, but there wasn't really any like status update as to like, is my friend going to die? So then I eventually went up to them and was like, what's going on? Like, you know, in terms of like the, is he going to be okay? Are you pumping his stomach? You know, like what's happening? And they were kind of flippant, to be honest. They were like, oh no, he's fine. He's been fine type thing. Like we've dealt with that aspect of it. And
you're like, why didn't you fucking tell me?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I was so fucked up about that. And maybe they told Max, but I don't think they did tell Max and Alessandra because I feel like they would have told me. So I'm just like,
I'm sure they would have.
Fuck, do you not tell me this? Like, and so
I'll tell you, that is so so hard for me to hear that. Jesus Christ.
Well, it was hard to live it, to be honest. So
yeah, no, I know.
And so then I just was screaming. I think the adrenaline, because there was so much adrenaline the whole time, and then the end part was so intense. And like I had to stay at a certain level the whole time of like staying level and calm. So then finally I get to like release in some way, like to express how painful and scary and whatever everything is, and also relief about you not being dead, basically like in my mind, by my hand. I know that's not true, but like I felt the sense of responsibility.
Sure, yeah,
by
that's
giving
horrifying.
it to you.
You know.
So I'm like.
So I don't remember. All I remember is then I don't even remember whatever reason. I don't remember being in the ambulance. Next thing I remember is being at Presbyterian Hospital in like the regular hospital for a few days, waiting for a bed to open up in a psychiatric hospital. But holy shit, if that fucked up like particular variant of how things went didn't happen, I may have not gotten hospitalized. That manic episode may have spun out way longer. You know what I mean? Who knows what would have happened for the rest of the night? Who knows what would have happened the next day? And then it's the sort of thing, because it got nipped in the bud relatively early in that capacity, I was in a hospital. That sucked for sure. The psychiatric hospital sucked. But I got out of there. I got I got stabilized and didn't deal with a super, super, super like extended depression. And now I'm somewhat back on track, you know?
Well, that's the thing is like we were like, this is bad. I mean, it's been worse, quote unquote, but that was the reason why we're like, we have to do something about this, because what happens when it spins out again, like COVID, everything, like I should see
COVID on top of it makes it just so much worse. You
right.
know, I blow through all of my money. It's just, it's like dangerous every place. It's like, it's fucking disaster,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And look, I know that this puts you through the emotional ringer, to put it lightly, and just thank you for being there for me and being such a good friend. And fuck, dude. Thank you.
Not with.
Oh, come on. Just, can't you
You're welcome.
just
I
fucking...
can't, I can't do sincerity. You're welcome.
Fuck.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I love you.
Hey, listen to me. I love you too, very much. Okay. I mean,
you know what's
you're
funny
fucking...
though? You know what's funny though, in a poetic way, that I think this episode, also after this, I have a stalker. He's now kind of seems to have gone dormant, but like this, along with that, spun me out to such a level that I started to go to therapy again, because I was already feeling like not great before this. Another thing happened with some close friends. Like, your mania spun me so far into like poor mental health that I went to see a doctor and then was diagnosed.
And now got this diagnosis of bipolar 2 disorder?
Right. Because what's interesting, and again, like I think I went undiagnosed for so long because I was very functioning. I never hit mania. It's always hypomania. You know what I mean? Like I also have all these other, like I have alcoholism, so that explains the drinking. Like I kind of snaked my way through, not on purpose. No, I think I was managing things in my own way for such a long time. And then the wheels flying off is how we got to this particular... So I can.
So this is when I get to say to you, "You're welcome." If it wasn't for me, caring enough and trusting you enough to go fully spun out to the point where you thought that it was your fault that I was going to pass away, you would not have gotten this bipolar 2 diagnosis that now allows you to make some changes to really thrive in this life.
Literally like two people who are chemically imbalanced pushing each other towards treatment.
All right.
It's so the blind leading the blind. It's so fucking funny.
Well, look, it's fucking crazy, but honestly, I thank God, I thank my lucky stars, I thank whatever that it broke this way, because it could have been so bad, and it actually turned into, for a really bad situation, a kind of a best case scenario, which is so fucking crazy.
Isn't it insane? Yeah, we're in the upside down
listen,
for sure.
You're a fucking superhero, and I would say now would probably be the best time to plug your podcast, because any psychos listening to this definitely have to listen to the Hot Mess Comedy Hour. Please let people know.
Yes. Well, actually, it's funny. Your episode of the Hot Mess Comedy Hour is one of our most downloaded ones. Because
that's awesome.
You discussing your previous Manic episode, which was one of the greats, one of the all-time greats, and also me discussing my lady orgy at Burning Man. So that one was packed.
That'll do it. When you got a wild ass manic episode taking place in our nation's capital, coupled with a lady orgy in Burning Man, you're gonna get some downloads.
Yeah, it was one of the Grand Slam episodes, one of my favorites. Really great. So there's John's episode of the Hot Mess Comedy Hour, and it's funny. Like I mentioned to Emily, I'm like, good thing, because I spoke a little bit about my diagnosis on the last episode of the Hot Mess Comedy Hour. And it's like, there was some foresight in me starting a podcast about like being insane. Because now I have a diagnosis. Well, it's interesting because it was started around the Hot Mess Comedy Hour, which is an interview show. And the question that we ask our guests is, why are you a hot mess? So it can kind of go any direction that the guest or ourselves or where we steer it. But we started it actually, as soon, like roughly maybe a few months after I got sober, and Emily was struggling with a lot of eating disorder and anxiety issues. So we've kind of used this show as like catharsis and healing in a certain sense. But you also get to hear us like age and change and also be diagnosed for, you know what I mean? It was like alcoholism, sex addiction, and now the newest member of my family is bipolar. So, yeah. It's
an awesome show, and the dynamic between you and Emily is so great, and you guys have great interview skills.
Thank you.
I really highly suggest that all you psychos check it out.
Yes, please do, and follow me at Andrea Comedy 69 on Instagram. There's thirst traps all over the place.
Definitely do that. It is thirst trap central.
The pandemic has only greatened the amount of time that I post my bare ass. So if anything, follow me for that. If you're an ass man.
Yes, if you are as an ass person in general.
Sorry, excuse me. Right, I don't want to be in the binary.
Yeah. But Andrea, thank you so much. This is such a great episode, and I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
I'm still alive. Yeah. I was actually listening to that song "Alive" by Pearl Jam, and I was like, "Fuck, dude, I'm still fucking alive, man." Yes. All this crazy shit. So let's live positively. Let's live peacefully. Let's live healthfully and creatively. And there's something to longevity, and I want to live for a long time. And I love you and appreciate you deeply.
Not with that attitude.
Ow.
I love you and appreciate you deeply, too. There you go.
All right. I knew that was painful for you, but thank you. All right. I'll talk to you soon, okay? Bye, Andrea.
Bye.